Dear popular YouTubers, Twitch streamers, and celebrity geeks, and any geek out there, you don't know me, and I am pretty sure that you haven't heard of the waygeek community here in South Korea. Your first question might be, what is waygeek? Well, it is derived from the Korean word for foreigner, wayguk. And some clever people came together and decided to create a geek community that started out as a place for foreign geeks to hang out. And now it includes everything and everyone that is related by one word: geek. Why am I telling you all this? Well, it's because the geek community here in Gwangju, South Korea, is doing something great for charity. And they have big plans for the future.
Hi, I'm Joji Villa. I'm the founder of P2P RPG. So, P2P RPG is a charitable organization that leverages the tabletop role-playing game experience to raise as much money as we can for populations that can't advocate for themselves. P2P RPG has two main convictions. We want to, number one, give players the best role-playing game experience that they've ever had. And so we want to have great minis, great terrain, we want to have great character portraits, we want to have great dice, great looking dice. We want them to have as cool of an experience as they can have. Number two, raise as much money for populations that can't advocate for themselves. And so here in Gwangju, South Korea, we have chosen to play role-playing games and raise money by doing that to make money for orphans to buy them Christmas presents. And why do we do that for orphans? Because they're worth it. And why Christmas presents? Because the orphans here in South Korea, they're provided for, but they don't always have the chance to choose a gift that becomes theirs. Just through the nature of, like, living in group homes, a lot of stuff they get is the same, and it's not the best quality. So we want to partner with Adopt a Child for Christmas in Gwangju to ensure that all the orphans in Gwangju have at least a 30,000 Korean won budget to get themselves a Christmas present. And that it's really important to just sort of do what we can to ameliorate a psychological wound that they have, because I think these orphans believe that they're not worth it, but that's not something that certainly I believe, or P2P RPG will ever believe. And so we want to do what we can to just kind of combat that psychological wound with Christmas presents. It's not a lot, we're not going to change the world by doing it, but if we can sort of redirect the values of an orphan and make them think that, like, they are worth it. Just because your parents abandoned you, that doesn't mean that you need to believe that you're not worth it, or anything like that. So that's what we do. We want to give players the best game they can to raise as much money as we can for populations that can't advocate for themselves.
Before we delve into the Dungeons and Dragons side of things, I should let you know that there were other games played at the Alleycon Mini International Tabletop Day, and one game was playtested there too. It is called Bionic Brawl. Being the only man with the camera there, I could not get all the games that was played. So here are a few honorable mentions that I actually got on camera. Games like Seven Wonders, Carcassonne, Bolt Action, Clue. Interesting side note on Clue, in South Africa it is called Cluedo. I don't know why I said it, I just thought I had to, right? And then Magic the Gathering. Man, I don't know what's going on in that game. Seems like fun, though. But I don't know what's going on, man. Don't know. The last part of this video will be focusing more on the P2P RPG Dungeons and Dragons game. The reason why these men look so tired, right, is that they have just finishing DMing something like a 6-hour session in public. And that is no small feat.
Hi, I'm Brian Briggs. I have been DMing for about 10 plus years. It was a really good experience being able to get in on the charities again. I've done some things in the past, but it's been really nice getting in Gwangju and do that.
Hey there, my name is Jordan Van Hardingsfeld. I am the founder of Alleycon. I was the general manager at Alleycon 2013, Alleycon 2014, and will be the general manager at Alleycon 2015. I was a DM during International Tabletop Day 2015's P2P RPG event. Really looking forward to what P2P RPG has planned for the upcoming Alleycon 2015. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you later.
So I actually ran 2 rooms. Sort of the metagame aspect of what we did is we had basically 3 phases and then a final big dragon fight. So we had like a puzzle, combat puzzle, or combat puzzle, or just puzzle and combat within 3 phases there, however we wanted to break those up. And then the great big dragon fight at the end. I chose to do combat puzzle. And so my combat phase was twofold. I had my players fight a very powerful mage who had a bunch of shield guardians guarding the mage. And so the shield guardians, I just ended up using sort of like great big tall Lego men, because they kind of have like a robotic look to them anyway. And so I used those for shield guardians, and then a mage. And the characters would have made pretty quick work of them, but it didn't quite go that way because we had some unexperienced players, and so we had to work around that. It took a little bit longer than we wanted it to. But that was okay, because they did end up winning. And there were some hijinks in there. I had a gnome who had a broom of flying, who tried to fly the broom up one of the robots' butts, and so that allowed. that was a good time. They did end up, from that room, they actually got one of the constructs to fight for them. So, good job for them. The next room sort of like emanated directly from that. Like I kind of ran it like every phase. The players would phase out and phase in somewhere else. And so the next room after that, what they had to do is they fought a fire giant, a bunch of fire elementals and stuff like that. I wanted to put fire in there to foreshadow for the final tile, which is a dragon tile. And so they beat the great big fire elemental, the fire giant, the hellhounds that the fire giant had. And then the third room was the puzzle room. So we had combat puzzle. And the puzzle, what I did is I took apart all the constructs that were the shield guardians, and I put all their pieces out on my dungeon tiles, and I had one great big pedestal in the middle of the tile, and the fire giant from the previous room was standing on that pedestal. And I took the time to carve in Draconic into the styrofoam base the pedestal piece had a styrofoam base, and I carved into the styrofoam in Draconic only the worthy. And so the fire giant was standing on the pedestal that said only the worthy, and then through a series of intelligence, perception checks, arcana checks and things like that, the players were able to discern that they had to figure out which of these pieces they could put together to make the strongest construct to get up on the pedestal and kind of have like a sumo wrestling fight with the fire giant. And so once they made those checks, they got the strongest one up there, and then after that, the construct, the shield guardian, was sort of psychically linked to all the players, and so my rogue controlled the legs, I had the paladin control the shield, I had the fighter control the sword, the construct had horns because it's awesome, and so I had the cleric control the head to do some awesome headbutting, and then I had the gnome control like constitution checks and saving throws and things like that, and then I just, whenever the construct would attack, that way all the characters could roll at the same time and feel really, really involved. And so they'd all roll their d20, and I'd let them add the proper attributes so that the construct, would fight back, the fire giant would fight back. And so it kind of became this game of push and shove until they eventually beat the fire giant. After that was the final room, in which I ran an ancient red dragon Lich. So I had a really cool looking undead dragon out there, and I made the most use of the terrain, I feel, because I skewered players on the stalagmites. I threw them into the pools of lava with the dragon. However, some of my players had flying, and so it was a lot of fun to see how they'd utilize that. At one point, the dragon was flying up, and I had a player up here, and he decided to fly toward the dragon, so they did kind of like a Dragon Ball Z, like, thing, and it was pretty great. The dragon would have completely killed him, but due to the nature of P2P RPG, where the players can buy for paying for rerolls, they were able to re-roll a lot of their, failed Constitution saving throws or things like that. And so they ended up killing the dragon. It took a long time. The dragon killed many of them several times, and they had to buy reses. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and they killed the dragon in a very, very cool way. The fighter crit his last roll, and so he kind of snuck up on the dragon, or sneak up and got a chance to like vault up on the back of the dragon and stick a sword right between the scales of the back of the dragon's head and into the brain. So good on him. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, my group represented the green. I actually had 4 rooms. The first room was a puzzle room where there were 3 switches, and in the other room there was a orb. One of the switches would light the orb. They had to figure out which switch lit the orb. They were only allowed to open the door once. The solution of the puzzle was they were supposed to hold one down and it would heat up the orb. Put it back up, pull another one down. And if they went into the room and it was lit, then they knew that the one that was currently down was the correct one. If it was off and hot, then it was the first one. And if it was off and not hot, then it was the third switch. They just kind of flipped a bunch of switches a couple times so they couldn't really tell, and brought the orb, dropped it on one of them, and it was the wrong one, and released a mummy lord with a few mummies. The second room was going to be the third room, but I wanted to make sure I got it done, was the laser puzzle, where the players I had several mirrors set up, and depending on their checks, they would have to either do some math puzzles or they were given the numbers. Their checks were remarkably low, so they had to do some math. Forgot some of their math from 5th grade and almost released the purple worm that was encased in the center of the room. However, they re-examined the puzzle, found that they were missing something, and were able to release the spell without releasing the worm. And in the third room, they came down a long tunnel with this nasty sewer stuff, and they cleaned house in that room. There was no problems. The sorceress launched a delayed blast fireball, let it sit there for 10 rounds, and it just blew everything up. There was a Death Knight night room. They took him out pretty quickly, and in the end, they were pulled into the plane of air, of storms and such. And there was a cliff face. JJ did an excellent job on that tile. There were rubble floating in the air. All the characters except one had winged boots, so they could move around freely in this space. Unfortunately, they lost the fighter fairly early, and that hurt them pretty significantly. They did not have time before the game ended to complete it, so they were ripped back to the normal space in time to see the brick wall come.
So at the Table of Chaos, I had 3 different rooms. I ran 3 different rooms with the party that I had. And the first room was a room, basically it was the Underdark. In the Underdark, the Party of Chaos, 5 members, they fought against a group of drow. And a lot of little minions as well. There was even a Quasit in there, a demon, and it really turned out well. They fought against a drow mage who was leading up the entire charge, a couple of elite drow warriors, and then you also had a bunch of just like drow minions who had all transformed into their spider forms. The second room was a puzzle, and in the puzzle room there were a few spore burst fungus. They were kind of dropping down poison onto the party, and what the party had to do is they essentially solved the puzzle by breaking away loose rubble at the base of one of the walls. The rogue character had to climb through the hole, go into the round, and figure out from a old Dwergar poem which order to remove the different switches and levers that were in there. And in the last room, they had been transported to a ice lair. And in the ice lair, there was an ancient white dragon. The ancient white dragon used the terrain to his advantage. He used a lot of frost breath attacks. He used his wings to push them back. He did kill, actually, the rogue character. The rogue character made a very foolish decision to climb up on top of a iceberg, and the dragon just chomped. They did end up, in the end, defeating the Frost Dragon, and when the Frost Dragon died, the glamour, the room that they were in, went back to being a normal chamber, and they stood facing a giant brick wall.
So, P2P RPG has done 2 events. Back in September 2014, we raised 1.5 million Korean won. Today, International Tabletop Day of 2015, we raised 2.5 million Korean won. So far, we've raised 4 million Korean won, which is roughly, I don't know, 3,700 US dollars. And in Gwangju, all that money goes to Adopt a Child for Christmas Gwangju. And so that is a charity whose purpose is to buy Christmas presents for orphans within the city of Gwangju, because orphans are provided with a lot of things, but they never really get an opportunity to choose something that becomes theirs. This is sort of the nature of a group home. You know, everyone just kind of might get the same thing. It's nothing's really special. It's just, you know, let me just provide for you so you can, you know, subsist. And, you know, God bless them for doing that. Otherwise, orphans would have nothing. But, you know, we want them to feel like they matter. So one way we can do that is around Christmas time, we can buy them a gift that they get to choose. Every orphan gets 30,000 Korean won, with the budget 3,000 Korean won, and they get to choose a gift. And so P2P RPG leverages tabletop role-playing experiences to raise as much money as we can, so as many orphans as we can provide for can have some Christmas presents.
Noble cause. It kind of reminds me of the Penny Arcade charity, but they buy Child's Play, but they buy games for the kids.
They buy games, yeah.
Yeah,
they buy games for kids, I think, in hospitals and stuff like that.
Yeah, for hospitals, yeah.
Yeah, so it is very similar to Child's Play. And I kind of found this out after the fact. I heard about Child's Play years ago, and I thought it was a great idea. Kind of forgot about it, and then as I started researching more about how people use geeky things to raise money, I found out about Child's Play. And I was really happy about that, because those Penny Arcade guys are sort of innovators within the geeky community. And so if I can somehow follow their footsteps, you know, that's money to me. I'm okay with that, you know?
Yeah.
So for the future of P2P RPG, I want to break it into 2 main streams. I want to be able to stream games on Twitch and do live games that way. We can pull in a lot of donations through Twitch. And I also want to take the game to different conventions, geeky conventions, all over the place. Here in Gwangju, South Korea, we have a convention called Alleycon, and I run P2P there, and it has a great reception, and I'm happy about that. But for the future, I really want this to be sort of like the Acquisitions Incorporated game, Dungeons & Dragons game, where they play Dungeons & Dragons on stage in front of an audience. And so what I would love to do is I'd love to do like Dungeons & Dragons in front of an audience on stage, where the players are mic'd and there's cameras on them, and the audience can then throw down different donations, you know, and then this is what I want. I want them to text their donation and text what they want to happen. And then we'll have someone wrangling those texts, and they can send them up to me through like some sort of a live stream that's being updated. So that's the kind of the vision I have for right now. Like I want to be running games on Twitch where people can donate, and then I want to be doing games at different conventions. And that's what I want. You know, we're going to do what we can to raise as much money for orphans. So that's the dream, that's the vision, that's where we're going.
As the video said, Alleycon Mini International Tabletop Day has raised $2,300 US for the Gwangju Orphanage charity, the Adopt a Child for Christmas charity. That is really a cool thing. So, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, all of you should have a geeky good one.